Hi everyone, welcome to the first Northeast Project podcast. My name's Kieran. I'm with Ben here, the two coaches. Are you excited to do this, Ben?
Yeah, I'm very excited. First episode coming up. I'm really looking forward to this. Should be good to express our opinions and show people about NEP.
Absolutely. It's been a whirlwind of a year, and we've got lots to talk about. That's the whole reason for doing a podcast, really. Obviously, we're incredibly busy at the moment, coaching a lot of athletes, a lot of exciting things happening, and we just want to share our voice and share our story of what's been going on. We've also got a special guest later who we'll bring in about 10 or 15 minutes. But we've got a few topics we're interested in, Ben, haven't we?
We do, yeah. We've got a few topics to do. Firstly, from our training from winter, which we were particularly interested about, weren't we?
Yeah, so I think the topic on everyone's lips at the moment is with training through lockdown and training through winter at the same time. It's got to be one of the most difficult times ever, I think, to be a runner, not having that social aspect of training, and a lot of people without a focus. Tough time of year anyway, of course, in these winter months. So for yourself, Ben, as a top athlete and a top runner yourself, what's some methods you use to get through training at the moment? What's sort of your style?
Good question. I think for me at the moment, it's checking my progress and seeing where I am. A lot of the training that I do tend to do is obviously tend to be around hard sessions. So I think it's important to know not just what you're doing, but also why you're doing it. With the background behind your sessions, and I think if you can understand that and you can get your motivation behind why you're doing it, then there's a definite reason for you to step out the door, even if the weather is not very good, as in the last couple of months. But also as well, I think there's a support from other people as well. It's really important. Obviously, the Kenyans do it, and they're training tens and tens in groups, don't they?
So you've mentioned the support network there, and I think that's a really important aspect of NEP at the moment. Although we're not training together, we're training one-to-one. But as a community, through the likes of technology and social media, we do feel like we are as one, and we are accountable to each other to do our training to be the best we can be, and to race virtually in these times. It's a good point, and I think not every club is having the chance to do that. Of course, depends on your coaching capacity to coach one-to-one. But if we can focus on one athlete at a time, I think that gives us a good opportunity to do the best we can in these winter months. So for you, Ben, what's winter been like for you in the past? So obviously we have seasons, and we have track seasons and winter cross-country seasons. Obviously no races for a year now. How are you feeling at the moment?
Yeah, I think for me previously it's definitely been the time of year which I tend to get injured. Obviously, a lot of people tend to picking up the mileage, especially in cross-country season. Cross-country season starts in September, and you tend to see a lot of athletes who don't necessarily train properly. They tend to burn out between the events in November, December. So by the time to get to the national and northern races in January and February, they do tend to struggle. And I was sort of in that boat the last couple of years. I tried to pick up my mileage from 60 miles, 50, 70 miles, 75, without the proper technique. But I think I've learned from that. And a lot of athletes do adopt that trial and error approach, especially through winter time.
You've never been at that mileage.
I've done 70-mile weeks, but I got injured straight away.
I remember you did one 70-mile week. Yeah.
Oh, it killed me. It killed me. It really did. But yeah, I think if you can definitely get the structure first, I think that's one thing I definitely learned from that period. Obviously, I don't know about yourself, Kieran, but for me, the last few years has been a trial and error approach. I think that's everyone really. I didn't really have the base with strength and conditioning, but I'm starting to build it in now, and it's definitely a massive part of running that a lot of runners often neglect, especially over winter time.
Good point, actually. Having a range train as well. A lot of runners, maybe beginners and other sort of runners, they probably think about training just going out for a run, going out front door. But I think if you can mix different elements in there, so you've got strength and conditioning, you've got, like you said, your hard sessions, so all sorts of different hard sessions you can do, of course, fartleks intervals. You've got your long runs, you've got your easy runs, you've got your tempos. I think if you can have a balanced mix of sessions, you're never going to get bored. And like you say, having a structure, what NEP loves about our coaching aspect is that we can drive people with a structure to stick to, and that keeps people accountable. I think that's a massive thing right now.
Yeah, exactly, 100%. And I think obviously people have different targets, people have different ambitions, and you've just got to generally accept the fact that you are going to lose motivation. You know, we're all human, no matter how good we are. And it's really at that point what you turn to, what path you take, and obviously the support of NEP. No matter what ability, everyone's really supportive, and if you are lacking motivation, you can turn to someone who can support you through that.
Yeah, I think at the moment you've got to have a long-term approach. It's going to be a while since we can get out together and sort of target some big events. You've got to be looking at the next sort of 6-9 months, and you've got to pick out a target. So for me, I've picked out Manchester Marathon in October as a big target. Where I'm personally wanting to run a sub 220 marathon, bit of a crazy goal. But having that is definitely a huge focus for me at the moment. I've never been more focused and driven on that. Have you got a target, Ben, at the moment?
Yeah, I want to go for the European Championships in aquathlon. Obviously, a new chapter, a new journey for me. But I've also want to do a sub 4 for 1500, which is quite tough to see at the moment, obviously, with coronavirus and stuff. But hopefully in the summer, I'd love to be able to do that and put together a consistent set of training over the next few months to get to that goal.
Yeah, and obviously at the moment, we're not having a chance to train on a track. So I think a lack of facilities is such a big thing for athletes at the moment. Gyms are closed, so a lot of athletes can't get strength and conditioning, which is why we're doing a lot of things on Zoom. Everyone's probably sick of Zoom at the moment. But yeah, we're doing a lot of exercises from home, and it'd be interesting to see when gyms do open if people will still continue to exercise from home, because how easy it is really, and how it cuts out the travel time, cuts out the cost a lot of the time as well. What do you think on that one?
Yeah, I think obviously with lockdown, people have gone two ways, haven't they? There's some people who have took it on board, and there's other people who have quite possibly struggled. But obviously with the lack of facilities there, it just shows with the people who have gone out and gone there, there's always an opportunity to do something. Running is essentially a sport where you just have to step out the door and put one foot for the other, essentially. So it's up to the individuals whether you want to take the opportunity or not. I know it's limited, but there's always an opportunity to get out there and achieve what you want to achieve.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm certainly missing the track myself, especially for high quality sessions. The parks and sort of roads getting used. But yeah, we used to rely on a couple of track sessions a week, didn't we?
100%, yeah. We used to do at least a hard interval session fast on the track at least once every 2 weeks. And with the sports village, it was a fantastic place to go days and try the condition afterwards, which I think we both agree that we've missed those heavy weight lifting, which especially the elite games will take you from the good level to the great level.
Yes, so if anyone doesn't know where we're sort of based, most of North East Project sort of operates in the Teesside area. A lot of our training ourselves, Ben, of course, is around the sports village.
Of course,
there's some great facilities in Teesside, and it's a great area for athletes to come through. You've obviously got the North York Mews on the doorstep. You've got River Tees, some great routes around there. You've got the parks, and you've got the sports village, of course, and some great gyms. But yeah, I think it's a fantastic place to train. I've been training for about 3 years.
I couldn't agree more. It's a fantastic training facility, and I think especially as well the running community within Teesside is absolutely fantastic. Everyone's really supportive, and the areas as well. I mean, it's a 10-minute drive in between anywhere, but you've got the likes of Stokesay, Great Ayton, Pinchinthorpe, North York Mews, if you said. You've got Tees Barrage, which is a fantastic training facility. You've got the Sports Village, which is a multi-million-pound investment. So there's plenty of opportunities and plenty of fantastic infrastructures in Middlesbrough.
It's not just Teesside, because all the North East is a fantastic community.
Of course, yeah.
And we've got athletes all over from all corners of the North East who are flying the flag at the moment and doing absolutely fantastic.
Exactly, that's just one part of the puzzle, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've pushed on a bit, but would you like to describe, Ben, to everyone listening, on what the NEP training structure is? How do we go about coaching?
Yeah, sure. So basically, NEP is a personalised individual structure of training, which suits the individual within the team setting. What we often tend to do is write training plans as part of a whole package. So athletes get a structure of Monday to Sunday and every single day and what they need to do for the sessions. And we tend to control each individual athlete's training process through our scientific knowledge as well, and through our own coaching experience and through our own athletics. What would you say on that, Kieran?
Yeah, so obviously we heavily control each athlete's sort of week and try and lead them to their goals. But we're definitely seeing a good trend at the moment with people PBing across the board and the different virtual stuff we've done throughout the lockdowns, which is really fantastic to see. It's a credit to their commitment as well. But I think having more control, obviously a lot of clubs are run by volunteers and they operate with big group sessions and they haven't got that personalisation. Obviously we're a business as well to sell jobs, and it allows us to put a little bit more attention to detail into each athlete. And I think it's made a really good impact throughout the last 9 months in particular, post-COVID. Of course, we've had to adapt our services through COVID, but I think it's been for the better, focusing on one-to-one sessions more often and bringing the training plans into play. I think from a coaching point of view, it's been fantastic.
110%. And I think obviously if it just shows with people's results that it's working. At the moment we've got around 120 athletes, would you say? And And obviously, I couldn't tell you one athlete who hasn't excelled as part of the plan. I mean, everyone's PB and all of those players.
You've got people who come in and out, of course. Not everyone. It doesn't work for everyone. Because obviously sticking to structure, you have to be really, really resilient and consistent. Not everyone has those traits, so those traits take time to be developed, which is also our job, is to inspire people to stick to those goals and stick to the plan. Another task is coaching in itself. Coaching isn't just about sort of putting something down on paper, it's about inspiring the athlete and following on the journey as well. Yeah, so got some upcoming events. This weekend we have the Power Hour. This is being recorded on Friday night. Of course, it's going to come out on Monday. So we're looking forward to seeing everyone's results over the weekend. How's your training been, Ben? I know you probably hasn't been the greatest for this event.
Yeah, at the moment, I mean, obviously, I'm just coming back from an injury. I struggled with a calf injury, especially Achilles, in the early part of January. But since then, I've really came back over the last 2 or 3 weeks, specifically focusing on strength conditioning, which is part of the classes. I've been doing that 3 times a week, 4 times a week for 30 minutes. That's really helped me as well. And I think it's been such a delayed process because obviously our coaching miles, I think we'll get onto it later in the podcast, but how many miles and how many steps we do during the week. I've went through a few months where, because I'm doing so many miles, any progress that I've sort of made is just being lashed back by that. But the last few weeks I've really focused, really knuckled down. And my sort of running structure has just been based around easy miles, building my cardiovascular system, and then pushing up from there. As I say, building the base of the house and then pushing up rather than trying to build from the top.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned, touching on the miles, how many miles we get through in a day. Sometimes it can be quite crazy. I think there was a Tuesday last week that hit 40 miles in one day. Which is crazy, but working wonders, especially for me personally.
Well, that just brings you back to the Dream Team 10K that we did in November.
Yeah,
we were both of our training periods weren't exactly fantastic. We both raced and we both got PBs.
On paper, they weren't fantastic. Yeah, but in real life, like we had put miles in, we had put sessions in.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, we both shaved a lot of time off, didn't we, in that 10K? What did you run, Ben? Was it 33?
33.26, yeah. You were 30.59, is that correct?
Yeah, 1 second under 31, which in the past I've trained really, really heavily to get under that 31, and this came sort of out of the blue, really. So really excited for the future on where I can take that one. Big aim to get under 30 minutes, yeah.
Yeah, what about yourself, Kieran? How's your training been going?
Yeah, loving it at the moment. And as I said earlier, I have that goal of the Manchester Marathon in October. I'm really, really focused on that. And I believe I can do it. I believe I can run in the sub 220. But yeah, recently PB'd in 5K, ran 15:01. There's a time trial on my own, really, in the Dream Team 5K. So frustrating not to get under, but also a PB at the same time. And I think next time I can go 14 really comfortably. So I'm really looking forward to that. For me, it's hard to get the quality in. Like I said, not having the facilities and having quite a busy work schedule. It is tough for that. I can get the miles in, I can get the tempos in, get the long runs in, but having that top edge quality stuff needs more focus if I am to get faster. But yeah, really excited for the future on that.
100%. I think you're in a fantastic position now, and the greatest thing is you've still got months ahead leading to Manchester Marathon in October, and obviously, hopefully, by May, June, July, restrictions might be ever so slightly eased, and you might have the opportunity to jump onto the track and finalise that last few months.
Yeah, my aim is to do a virtual marathon end of April. I would like to run a 5:30 pace, so that's going to take us to sort of 2:26, 2:27, something like that. And that would be a good target to hit. I would like to race. I've never raced a marathon before, so I do want to race one sort of 6 months before I do the real thing, the big goal, just to get an idea. So I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully we can make it a Titan event. It might just have to be a sort of one-to-one thing, but yeah, I look forward to that. Yeah. So upcoming events-wise, we've got the Power this week. We've got the Elevator Challenge coming, I believe, on the 21st of February, which is a Sunday. The Elevator, what's the Elevator, Ben?
So the Elevator is basically how high can you reach within a 2-hour running time frame. So basically picking the highest elevation that you can and however many feet you can achieve within 2 hours. Whoever gets the highest wins the competition. That's going to be not just only physical as well, but it's also going to be tactical. I'm trying to think about myself how I can outwit others by. I think the greatest tactic is to have the easiest downhill. So how fast you can go downhill will determine how many times you can attempt to run uphill. But also the elevation of the uphill as well. I mean, I'm thinking of some things like Rosy Top and Aussie Bank. There's some hefty hills.
and we're not going to scare people off. There is a 1 hour option as well. So there's a 2 hour option and a 1 hour option to get as much elevation as you can in 1 hour or 2 hours. Quite exciting. So we also got an hour time trial this weekend, all about speed. That one's all about elevation and the heavy version. Depends where you live as well. Obviously, you can't drive too far. You've got to stay in our area. So if you're blessed with a mountain, you're going to do well in that challenge. Okay. So
yeah, and if you're blessed with the straight of a pancake, you're in trouble.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Northeast isn't too bad for all that. Most people live next to hills. After that, we've got the Dream Team Mile Week, so a whole week of miles. Okay, what's better than that? So from Monday to Saturday, you can run as many time trials of the 1 mile distance as you can. When the results come out on Sunday, that's going to be exciting. We haven't raced a mile since our last one, virtual one we did back in May. So coming off some longer stuff, that'll be interesting to see how everyone's doing over the short. How are you feeling for that one, Ben? That's your type of event, isn't it?
It's my type of event, yeah. It is my type of event. That's going to be really interesting, actually, because every second really does count in that one. You know, you're talking over a 5 minute to 8 minute period of running, so that's going to be really interesting. And of course, every second counts. But all 4 athletes are seeded, obviously, so everyone's teams are fair. So that one's going to be really tight.
Yeah, of course, it's a team event, just the same as our Dream Team 10K and 5K. So, yeah, really good team atmosphere, really competitive, more competitive than any other race we're going to have. And it's across the whole week, so you can see the times coming in, and you can have multiple attempts. So that's going to be class. After that, we've got Dream Team 10K booked in the 13th of March for another bash at that. And after that, we're hoping to put out some real events. That's the aim. Of course, got the Hadrian's Wall Relay, which was supposed to be in last autumn, and we're hoping to do that in spring. Run across Hadrian's Wall, just like the coast to coast we did and the Cleveland Way we did in 2020. 2 fantastic events that brought NEP together, and truly epic, and lots of memories to talk from that one. We've got a special guest we'll have to bring on from the coast to coast to tell that story later. We'll
leave that for another day, shall we, Kieran?
We'll leave that story for another day. Epic. Yeah, and hopefully we can get some fantastic events out, road, trail, everything, over the summer and have a fantastic summer race. But anyway, we're going to move on to the second half of the podcast, and we're going to bring on an athlete. Okay, so throughout these podcasts, we're going to have an athlete insight, different athletes within NEP. Okay, now this athlete's been with us for a long time. Okay, I'm not going to go into too much detail. I'm going to let him do the explaining. But on the show, we've got Karl Bryden. Welcome to the show, Karl.
Welcome, Karl.
Hey, lads.
How you doing, Karl? Hope
I'm
you're
good,
well.
yeah.
Yeah, so you've been with us for a while. You've been through all the different structures of what we've thrown at you. You've done all sorts of events, and I don't think you've missed maybe more than 5 sessions over the last 2 years. So it's Mr. Consistent, Karl.
Yeah, not missed many. No.
No, I really can't think of any that you've missed. Yeah, I really can't. So that's a testament to that. Okay. So Karl, give us a bit of background on you. First question is, what got you involved in NEP? How did you get started in running?
Well, a few of our friends were in the early group when you started it. So we heard of the club from that, and we thought we'd come along and give it a go. At the time, I was playing football, so I wanted to just increase my fitness. Really, I never thought I'd take to running, to be honest with you. I thought I'd liked it in PE and that, so I'll give it a go and try and increase my fitness level. So yeah, I think when I did join, I really enjoyed it, and what was 2 times a week became more over time.
Yeah, slightly more. Yeah. So when you started, Karl, what was your baseline of fitness? Maybe like a 5K estimated time or something like that.
Well, obviously I hadn't ran a 5K, but I would estimate the best I could have ran back then would have been like 28 minutes for 5K. I wasn't particularly fit, and I certainly wasn't trained in running at all. So
yeah, it was almost a complete beginner really 2 years ago, and it's been an amazing 2 years. It's some journey, Karl, I have to admit. One of the best journeys I've seen as a coach. I haven't been coaching too long, but I think I'll take some beating. So how's the journey been? Let's start on the first year. How did the first year go?
Yeah, I think the first year was more just building on like my love for running. Like that built up throughout the year, I think, until I eventually decided to stop the football and focus on running. And I think the training methods now, I know everything behind it. Back then I just did what you said, you know what I mean, and got on with it. But now I can see that it was the perfect way to train from the get-go, and I think that's really played a big part in me growing as an athlete.
Yeah. I remember one of the first events you might have done would have been the Riverside 5K at Middlesbrough. Is that right?
Yeah, that was my first official race in 5K.
Yeah. What time did you run there, Karl?
I think I ran somewhere in the 21 region.
So already that's sort of 6 months in, wasn't it? So you
Yeah,
started
it wasn't.
around 28. Yeah, so that's a 7-minute drop in 6 months.
Yeah, it wasn't long. I think I made quite a lot of progress in the early stages, certainly, and just continued really.
Yeah, that was really good. So yeah, the second year. How did the second year go? So we talking about 2020. How was that? I think that's probably where you've made the most serious gains. Looking at your training and racing.
Yeah, I think it like introduced races that weren't just 5K, so doing my first 10K and half marathon races and that. And I've trained towards each one, building up to it, and that's increased all of my times in that way. And I think just building a good base for training, because I think I'm blessed with a bit of speed, but I think holding that is a big thing to focus on training for me, with tempo runs and stuff like that. So it's really helped over the year.
That's great. So would you like to share with everyone your 5K and 10K PBs?
My 5K PB is recently, and that's 18:04, and my 10K is 39 in the 39 region.
Yeah, but I know you're gonna smash that 10K. But
Yeah.
So you went from 28 to 18 minutes in 2 years.
That's pretty impressive to me.
Staggering. Pretty impressive, that, isn't it? And as we said before, I can't remember many sessions Karl's missed. Mr. Consistent, if that says anything, it's about being consistent as an athlete. If you had to put that progression down yourself, Karl, what would you say are the traits that you like to focus on that you think's helped to get that progression?
I think like determination's certainly very important, and obviously motivation comes into it, but you're not always going to have motivation. So I think you've got to have good mental strength to be a runner of any kind, I think, but to be one who's constantly progressing and increasing the training, I think, to get out the door some days, you've got to have a lot of mental strength to do that. So
Agreed. And how do you find the NEP community in terms of supporting your running right now?
Well, I think considering the situation we're in, I think the community NEP is great. I think the support from everyone throughout the club for each other. And I mean, some people, they might be new to the club and nobody really knows who they are yet, but they're already supporting them in their journey, in the start of their journey within the club. Yeah. So I think it's great.
Real good feel factor, isn't it, at the moment? Yeah. So how do you find the training structure in terms of the plans, in terms of types of sessions? What stands out to you? Is it working? Clearly it's working times-wise.
Yeah, I think it definitely works. Like not every week's the same. There's a lot of variation over a long period of time, but with focus within like a training block. And I think it's important to get 2 or 3 of hard sessions in a week. I think that's a big focus, depending on, obviously your mileage. For me, it's 3 these days, but I think the miles around that has been a big thing for me as well. I think building up from only running twice a week to now running up to 60 mile a week has been like a high contributor towards my success at the minute.
Yeah. And of course, a lot of coaches don't agree with big miles and high volume. I would suggest that our sort of philosophy at NEP is definitely centered around building a strong volume up. I believe that's within the consistency. I think if you can put a good solid bunch of miles in week out, you're going to be a consistent runner, and your performances are going to be consistent as well. You're not going to be up and down. I agree with that one, Karl.
Yeah, I agree. I think the personalisation of the plans is great because, I mean, if we realised a few months ago that one of my weaknesses was like tempo runs within the training, and I think longer distances for races. So we put some focus in tempo runs, and a lot of my times just within training have come down massively. And now we're back to more of a balanced training as we brought everything together.
Yeah, no, absolutely. In terms of like an athlete coach point of view, what do you think an athlete can do to help a coach out when it comes down to personalised coaching? How do you feel like the athlete coach relationship should be in terms of progressing training together?
Well, I think it has to be a close one for a start. I think there has to be like regular communication between coach and athlete, because without that, how can the coach like personalize your training? Because they might not know how you feel. So I think getting across to the coach how you feel after your hard sessions, certainly, even your long runs, maybe. I think in terms of just planning the next week that's coming up can be really important, so that you're not just digging a deeper hole for yourself if you're tired.
I don't know about you, Ben, but I feel like the words I use all the time is how do you feel? How do you feel? How do you feel?
Yeah, I was actually just going to pick up on that. I think Karl makes a brilliant point there. It's about athlete honesty. I think some people maybe at the time may feel like almost a little bit embarrassed to say they're a little bit tired, or maybe not embarrassed, but just feel like they've got the audacity to say all the time, like, I'm feeling fresh, I'm feeling fine. And that's not part of a training structure. If you're feeling great all the time, essentially you're doing it wrong. You need to be feeling tired sometimes to be able to adapt. And I think obviously you've got to let the coach know that to be able to then adapt your session and move forward positively.
Yeah, I see this all the time on social media.
Yeah.
We see athletes posting and posting stuff about how great this was. Look at this result. How fast I run here. Look how far I ran. But you don't see the bits underneath, the determination, the hard days, those rough Mondays after a long run. That's for me more important.
Yeah.
Because of course everything you see on social media, and right now everyone's at home, so they're probably on their phones all the time, picking up this podcast. But yeah, they're looking at everyone else, but most people only post the good times. And I think it's the bad times that make you a consistent athlete. And
yeah, I think especially during this lockdown, this is going off a bit, but social media is a massive influence for a lot of athletes.
Yeah, definitely. I think you've got to be careful about who you look up to, and I think you see a lot of athletes, they might follow Kipchoge or Bikili and think, right, I want to do what that guy's doing. But you've really got to take marginal gains and step by step. And yeah, you can have the bad influence as well. You can aim too high.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Right, Karl, how are you feeling about the future? So, what is your aspirations short term? So short term within the next year, if we could have races back in all of that, and it's a perfect atmosphere. What is your short term aspirations as an athlete?
Yeah, I think 5K is probably improving. That's probably the biggest thing. Getting a sub 18 5K is definitely a big short term goal, because I think within a month or so, that's very doable with only 4 seconds needed.
Yeah, you're 5 seconds away, Karl. That's next week. That's next week, not this year.
Yeah. Other than that, I think definitely it's possible for us to do a sub 1 hour 30 half marathon at some point as well, when we can get a race going for that as well.
Yeah. How do you feel about the longer distances? Because I know a lot of coaches frown upon younger athletes running that far.
Yeah. In terms of running it, obviously, I love the long miles, but racing, I do find it tough. I think it's something I need to build up to. I'm getting where 10K is quite comfortable to race at the minute, but further than that is still, I think, something I definitely would need to work on. If I was to really go for a good half marathon PB, I think I'd train for definitely a decent period of time to increase endurance and also mental endurance as well.
Yeah, but I think a lot of athletes, it's really important to have years of miles in your legs. And I remember when I was your age, Karl, I probably didn't race over 10K. And a 10K used to take a lot out of us. I think you've said in the past. I'm not sure about you, Ben, but I think most marathon runners peak in like late 30s. Like Kipchoge at the moment, his sub 2 was, I think he was 35, 36. and he's been training. You know, I think he was a silver medalist in the World Championships at 18 on the track 5,000. So you know, you don't necessarily peak until your late 30s in the longer distances. You've got plenty of time for that stuff. Yeah. How about you, Ben? How do you feel racing the longer stuff? I know you're more of a middle distance runner.
I think I'm in a very similar position to Karl. I'm quite similar with Karl. I do enjoy racing the longer stuff, but I'm just not as good compared to the shorter events. But it's definitely something I need to build up on. And when I was doing a lot of tempo runs over November, December last year, I was improving massively. Obviously, then I did have that injury. But yeah, definitely. And I think tempos are a massive game, which a lot of athletes do miss. That tends to fit really well with the structures of people racing 10Ks, half marathons, the tempo run.
Yeah, in terms of training philosophy, I know it's a good point that about the middle ground. And I think a lot of programs, a lot of clubs, they do miles and they do short, intense interval training, but they forget the middle ground, the tempo runs, the marathon pace runs.
100%.
That for me, the threshold. The word threshold gets thrown around NEP every week, every day.
But there's a reason.
Yeah. For me, that sort of intensity is so important to train week in, week out, to feel comfortable at a comfortably hard effort. I think that brings consistency. Something we adapted, I think, throughout the summer onwards is more tempo, more threshold work. I remember that being a conscious discussion we had then. And I think that's definitely paid off with the amount of consistency happening across the board. Because I think if you're doing just miles and short, intense rests for rests, you can become inconsistent and you can't put it together in the longer stuff, I would say.
You can almost forget how it feels to race because obviously with the intervals, you're only running for maximum 5 minutes. Exactly. And with your easy miles, you just run easy. So if then you jump into a race and it's the first time you've run for a hard period of time, over 20 minutes, 30 minutes, how the hell are you going to feel? How the hell are you going to know what to run? And also feel comfortable because all you've done is short efforts or slow, long miles.
And also the volume of sessions as well. Like I find that a lot of programs have, in an interval session, you might do 20 minutes of hard efforts. And years and years down the line, athletes still do 20 minutes of hard efforts. But for me, if you're racing 10K, you know, you're out there for 30, 40, 45, sometimes up to an hour, minutes-wise. And if you're only training for 20 minutes of 10K pace, then how are you supposed to maintain that for longer? I think the volume...
Obviously, you're going to fall apart, aren't you, after 20 minutes?
Yeah, the volume of quality, I think, is important. Not just quality or quantity, the volume of quality. Definitely.
Couldn't agree more.
We'll probably talk about more training philosophy later on, but anyway, Karl, long term, okay, could be 5 years onwards. What we're looking at? What's our targets?
Sub 18.
Yeah, I think I'd love to get somewhere around where you lads are running. The times you are putting out. I mean, biggest goal would be to get somewhere close to 15 minutes for 5K. That'd be the dream, really. But I think also just to improve me overall endurance would be great for the longer events as well.
Yeah, sounds good. That's the day I retire when you beat me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be retiring quite soon then.
Yeah, I know. I've maybe got a couple of years. Look, isn't it? How you feeling for the power hour tomorrow, Karl?
Good, yeah, fresh. I'm definitely aiming for something over 9 miles.
Nice.
I've got a question for you, Karl. About your pre-race. What's the word I'm looking for? Pre-race preparation. 24 hours before. What would you do to prepare for a race?
Oh yeah. Well, I always make sure I'm eating and drinking the right stuff. So I make sure I'm taking in plenty of carbs and staying hydrated. And I like to make sure that I've slept good the couple of nights before as well. And try and get some good sleep before the race as well, because obviously usually they're on a morning quite early, so that's an important thing for me because I do struggle with the early mornings if I haven't slept enough.
And just one more for me as well. Also, before like an hour before your race or half an hour before, how do you prepare to get yourself in the zone, not just physically but also mentally?
Yeah, I think music comes into it. That's that can liven you up certainly on a morning and that. And I think also just exactly. And I think just thinking about what you're about to do and knowing that it's going to be tough, but it's going to be worth it in the end, I think is really important to get into your head before you start a race.
Agreed.
Brilliant.
You've got to be in the right zone to attack it.
100%.
Well, I know it's getting on, and we're all racing the power hour in the morning. So this podcast is going to come out on Monday night when we'll have all the results. But been an honour to have you on the show, Karl. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you very much for coming on the show, Karl.
Really enjoyed that first podcast, and I'm looking forward to a series of these. We're going to do it every week. Okay, every Monday we're going to have a new athlete insight with someone in the club. Okay, and different topics each week. Really looking forward to it. Thank you for listening, everyone, and best of luck for the Power Hour. Catch up soon.
Take care, everyone. Best of luck for tomorrow.